For decades, engineers have been trying to create robots that look and act human. Now, rapid advances in artificial intelligence are taking humanoids from the lab to the factory floor. As fears grow that AI will displace workers, a global race is underway to develop human-like robots able to do human jobs. Competitors include Tesla, startups backed by Amazon and NVIDIA, and state-supported Chinese companies. Boston Dynamics is a frontrunner. The Massachusetts company, valued at more than $1 billion, is hard at work on a humanoid it calls Atlas. South Korean carmaker Hyundai holds an 88% stake in the robot maker. We were invited to see the first real-world test of Atlas at Hyundai's new factory near Savannah, Georgia. There, we got a glimpse of a humanoid future that's coming faster than you might think. Hyundai's sprawling auto plant is about as cutting-edge as it gets. More than 1,000 robots work alongside almost 1,500 humans, hoisting, stamping, and welding in robotic unison. This may look like the factory of the future, but we found the future of the future in the parts warehouse, tucked away in the back corner, getting ready for work. Meet Atlas, a 5'9", 200-pound AI-powered humanoid created by Boston Dynamics. The rise of the robots is science fiction no more.
I have to say, every time I see it, you just can't believe what my eyes are seeing. Is this the first time Atlas has been out of the lab?
This is the first time Atlas has been out of the lab doing real work.
Zach Jakowski heads Atlas development. He has 2 mechanical engineering degrees from MIT and a mission to turn the robot into a productive worker on the factory floor. We watched as Atlas practiced sorting roof racks for the assembly line without human help.
So he's working autonomously.
Correct.
You're down here to see how Atlas works in the field.
Yep.
And you'll be showing Atlas off to your bosses at Hyundai?
Yeah.
You feel like a proud papa?
I feel like a nervous engineer.
Jakowski has been preparing for this moment for a year. We first met him and Atlas a month earlier at Boston Dynamics headquarters just outside the city, where he and his team were teaching Atlas skills needed to work at Hyundai. And Atlas, with its AI brain, was gaining knowledge through experience. In other words, it seemed to be learning.
You know how crazy that sounds?
Yeah, a little bit. I think a lot of our roboticists would have thought that was pretty crazy 5-6 years ago.
When 60 Minutes last visited Boston Dynamics in 2021, Atlas was a bulky hydraulic robot that could run and jump. Back then, Atlas relied on algorithms written by engineers. When we dropped in again this past fall, we saw a new generation Atlas with a sleek all-electric body and an AI brain powered by NVIDIA's advanced microchips, making Atlas smart enough to pull off hard-to-believe feats autonomously. We saw Atlas skip and run with ease. Do you ever stop thinking, gee whiz?
I remain extremely excited about where we are in the history of robotics, but we see that there's so much more that we can do as well.
Scott Kindersma is head of robotics research, a job he proudly wears on his sleeve. You even have on a robot shirt.
Well, once I saw that this shirt existed, there was no way I wasn't buying it.
He told us robots today have learned to master moves that until recently were considered a step too far for a machine.
And a lot of this has to do with how we're going about programming these robots now, where it's more about teaching and demonstrations and machine learning than manual programming.
So this humanoid, this mechanical human, can actually learn.
Yes, and we found that that's actually one of the most effective way to program robots like that.
Atlas learns in different ways. In supervised learning, machine learning scientist Kevin Bergman, wearing a virtual reality headset, takes direct control of the humanoid, guiding its hands and arms move by move through each task until Atlas gets it.
And if that teleoperator can perform the task that we want the robot to do, and do it multiple times, and that generates data that we can use to train the robot's AI models to then later do that task autonomously.
Kindersma used me to demonstrate another way Atlas learns.
That very stylish suit that you're wearing is actually going to capture all of your body motion to train Atlas to try to mimic exactly your motions. And so you're about to become a 200-pound metal robot.
The calibration process is now complete.
He asked me to pick an exercise. They captured the way I work as well. I am here at the AI lab at Boston Dynamics. All of my movements, my walking, my arm gestures are being picked up by these sensors. Then engineers put my data into their machine learning process. Atlas's body is different from mine, so they had to teach it to match my movements virtually. More than 4,000 digital atlases trained for 6 hours in simulation.
And they're all trying to do jumping jacks just like you. And as you can see, they're just starting to learn, so they're not very good at it.
The simulation, he told us, added challenges for the avatars, like slippery floors, inclines, or stiff joints, and then homed in on what works best.
And it can eventually get to a state where we have many copies of Atlas doing really good jumping jacks.
They uploaded this new skill into the AI system that controls every Atlas robot. Once one is trained, they're all trained.
So that's what you look like when you're exercising.
And what I look like doing my job. I am here at the AI lab at Boston Dynamics. All of my movements, my walking, my arm gestures are being picked up by these sensors. This is mind-blowing. Through the same processes, Atlas was taught to crawl, do cartwheels. It didn't fare as well with the duck walk.
Oh, that was fun. And then this happens.
And then this happens.
Yeah. We love when things like this happen, actually, because it's often an opportunity to understand something we didn't know about the system.
What are some of the limitations you see now?
I would say that most things that a person does in their daily lives, Atlas or other humanoids can't really do that yet. I think
Like what?
Well, just putting on clothes in the morning or pouring your cup of coffee and walking around the house with it.
That's too difficult for Atlas?
Yeah, I think there are no humanoids that do that nearly as well as a person would do that. But I think the thing that's really exciting now is we see a pathway to get there.
A pathway provided by AI. What stands out in this Atlas is its brain. NVIDIA chips, the ones that helped launch the AI revolution with ChatGPT, process the flood of collected data, moving this humanoid robot closer to something like common sense.
So the analogy might be, if I was teaching a child how to do free throws in basketball, if I allow them to just explore and come up with their own solutions, sometimes they can come up with a solution that I didn't anticipate. And that's true for these systems as well.
Atlas can see its surroundings and is figuring out how the physical world works.
So that someday you can put a robot like this in a factory and just explain to it what you would like it to do, and it has enough knowledge about how the world works that it has a good chance of doing it.
There's a lot of excitement in the industry right now about the potential of building robots that are smart enough to really become general purpose.
Robert Plater, the CEO of Boston Dynamics, spearheaded the company's humanoid development. He's been building toward this moment for more than 30 years. The cornerstone was this robotic dog, Spot, introduced almost a decade ago. Spots are trained in heat, cold, and varied terrain and roam the halls of Boston Dynamics.
So we have some cameras, thermal sensors, acoustic sensors, an array of sensors on its back that lets it collect data about the health of a factory.
Spots carry out quality control checks at Hyundai, making sure the cars have the right parts. They conduct security and industrial inspections at hundreds of sites around the world. What began with Spot has evolved into Atlas.
So this robot is capable of superhuman motion. And so it's going to be able to exceed what we can do.
So you are creating a robot that is meant to exceed the capabilities of humans.
Why not, right? We would like things that could be stronger than us, or tolerate more heat than us, or definitely go into a dangerous place where we shouldn't be going. So you really want superhuman capabilities.
To a lot of people, that sounds scary. You don't foresee a world of Terminators.
Absolutely not. I think if you saw how hard we have to work to get the robots to just do some of the straightforward tasks we want them to do, that would dispel that worry about sentience and rogue robots.
We wondered if people might have more immediate concerns. We saw workers doing a job at the Hyundai plant that Atlas is being trained to perform. I guarantee you there are going to be people who will say, I'm going to lose my job to a robot.
Work does change. So the really repetitive, really back-breaking labor is going to end up being done by robots. But these robots are not so autonomous that they don't need to be managed. They need to be built, they need to be trained, they need to be serviced.
Plater told us it could be several years before Atlas joins the Hyundai workforce full-time. Goldman Sachs predicts the market for humanoids will reach $38 billion within the decade. Boston Dynamics and other U.S. robot makers are fighting to come out on top. But they're not the only ones in the ring. Chinese companies are proving to be formidable challengers. They're running to win. Are they outpacing us?
The Chinese government has a mission to win the robotics race. Technically, I believe we remain in the lead, but there's a real threat there that simply through the scale of investment, we could fall behind.
To stay ahead, Hyundai made that big investment in Boston Dynamics.
4 robots.
We were at the Georgia plant when Atlas engineer Zach Jakowski presented Atlas to Hong-Soo Kim, Hyundai's head of global strategy. He came all the way from South Korea to check in on the brave new world the car maker is funding. What do you think of the progress that they've made with Atlas?
I think we are on track about the development. Atlas so far is very successful. It's a kind of start of a great journey.
The destination? That humanoid future we mentioned at the start. Robots like us, working beside us, walking among us. It's enough to make your head spin.
When Demis Hassabis won the Nobel Prize last year, he celebrated by playing poker with a world champion of chess. Hassabis loves a game, which is how he became a pioneer of artificial intelligence. The 49-year-old British scientist is co-founder and CEO of Google's AI powerhouse called DeepMind. We met 2 years ago when chatbots announced a new age. Now, as we first told you this past spring, Hassabis and others are chasing what's called artificial general intelligence, a silicon intellect as versatile as a human, but with superhuman speed and knowledge. After his Nobel and a knighthood from King Charles, we hurried back to London to see what's next from a genius who may hold the cards of our future.
What's always guided me and the passion I've always had is understanding the world around us. I've always been, since I was a kid, fascinated by the biggest questions. You know, the meaning of life, the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality itself. I've loved reading about all the great scientists who worked on these problems and the philosophers, and I wanted to see if we could advance human knowledge. And for me, my expression of doing that was to build what I think is the ultimate tool for advancing human knowledge, which is AI.
We sat down in this room 2 years ago, and I wonder if AI is moving faster today than you imagined.
It's moving incredibly fast. I think we are on some kind of exponential curve of improvement. Of course, the success of the field in the last few years has attracted even more attention, more resources, more talent. So that's adding to this exponential progress.
Exponential curve, in other words, straight up.
Yep, straight up, and increasing speed of progress.
Start.
Yeah.
We saw the progress
Hello, Scott. It's nice to see you again.
in an artificial companion that can see and hear and chat about anything. Early chatbots learned only the internet. An app called Astra also takes in the world.
Do we call her she?
It's a good question. I'm not sure we all know the answer yet.
Bibo Xu is product manager for Project Astra, an app in a new generation of chatbots that interpret the world with their own eyes. We challenged Astra with virtual paintings we chose and showed to Astra for the first time.
This is July Hay by Thomas Hart Benton from 1942.
How about this one?
That is The Virgin of Charity by El Greco. That painting is Automat by Edward Hopper.
The person in the painting, what emotion is she exhibiting?
The subject in the painting appears pensive and contemplative, her expression suggesting a sense of solitude.
Can you create a story around this picture?
It's a chilly evening in the city. A Tuesday, perhaps. The woman, perhaps named Eleanor, sits alone in the diner. She is feeling melancholy due to the uncertainty of her future and the weight of unfulfilled dreams. The scene freezes in time, only the flow of ideas moving onward.
That line, only the flow of ideas moving onward? I wish I'd written that. And did we hear a limit to Astra's patience?
What was that fictional conversation about?
In the story I imagined, Eleanor and her friend talked about their shared dreams and the challenges of pursuing them.
Something about the way you said made me wonder if you were getting bored.
I apologize if my tone came across that way. My aim is always to engage thoughtfully.
And she said, well, I'm sorry if you don't like my tone.
Wow. Well, you see,
what's happening there?
Well, that's interesting. That's, again, a challenge with these systems as they act in the moment with the context that's around them, and that may have never been tested before.
He's often surprised because AI programs are sent out on the internet to learn for themselves. They can return later with unexpected skills.
So we have theories about what kinds of capabilities these systems will have. That's obviously what we try to build into the architectures. But at the end of the day, how it learns, what it picks up from the data is part of the training of these systems. We don't program that in. It learns like a human being would learn. So new capabilities or properties can emerge from that training situation.
You understand how that would worry people.
Of course. It's the duality of these types of systems, that they're able to do incredible things, go beyond the things that we're able to design ourselves or understand ourselves. But of course, the challenge is making sure that the knowledge databases they create, we understand what's in them.
Now, DeepMind is training its AI model called Gemini to not just reveal the world, but to act in it, like booking tickets and shopping online. It's a step toward AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, with the versatility of a human mind.
On track for AGI?
In the next 5 to 10 years, I think.
And in 2030, you will have what?
Well, we'll have a system that really understand everything around you in very nuanced and deep ways and kind of embedded in your everyday life.
Embedded like Astra in eyeglasses.
What can you tell me about this building I'm looking at?
This is the Coal Drops Yard, a shopping and dining district.
She sees what I see. There's a speaker in the earpiece only I can hear.
What was it originally before it became shops?
The Coal Drops Yard was originally a set of Victorian coal warehouses used to receive and distribute coal across London.
Was coal ever a problem for the environment in London?
Yes, coal was a significant source of air pollution in London, particularly during the Industrial Revolution.
It occurred to us that the only thing we contributed to this relationship were legs, which will also soon be engineered.
I also think another big area will be robotics. I think it will have a breakthrough moment in the next couple of years where we'll have demonstrations of maybe humanoid robots or other types of robots that can start really doing useful things.
For example,
Hey, robot.
researchers Alex Lee and Julia Vazani showed us a robot that understands what it sees
That's a tricky one.
and reasons its way through vague instructions.
Put the blocks whose color is the combination of yellow and blue into the matching color ball.
The combination of yellow and blue is green, and it figured that out. It's reasoning.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
The toys of Demis Hassabis' childhood weren't blocks, but chess pieces. At 12, he was the #2 champion in the world for his age. This passion led to computer chess, video games, and finally, thinking machines. He was born to a Greek Cypriot father and Singaporean mother. Cambridge, MIT, Harvard. He's a computer scientist with a PhD in neuroscience because, he reasoned, he had to understand the human brain first. Are you working on a system today that would be self-aware?
I don't think any of today's systems, to me, feel self-aware or, conscious in any way. Obviously, everyone needs to make their own decisions by interacting with these chatbots. I think theoretically it's possible.
But is self-awareness a goal of yours?
Not explicitly, but it may happen implicitly. These systems might acquire some feeling of self-awareness. That is possible. I think it's important for these systems to understand you, self and other, and that's probably the beginning of something like self-awareness.
But he says if a machine becomes self-aware, we may not recognize it.
I think there's two reasons we regard each other as conscious. One is that you're exhibiting the behavior of a conscious being, very similar to my behavior. But the second thing is you're running on the same substrate. We're made of the same carbon matter with our squishy brains. Now, obviously, with machines, they're running on silicon. So even if they exhibit the same behaviors, and even if they say the same things, it doesn't necessarily mean that this sensation of consciousness that we have is the same thing they'll have.
Has an AI engine ever asked a question that was unanticipated?
Not so far that I've experienced. And I think that's getting at the idea of what's still missing from these systems. They still can't really yet go beyond asking a new novel question or a new novel conjecture or coming up with a new hypothesis that has not been thought of before.
They don't have curiosity.
No, they don't have curiosity, and they're probably lacking a little bit in what we would call imagination and intuition.
But they will have greater imagination, he says, and soon.
I think actually in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, I think we'll have systems that are capable of not only solving an important problem or conjecture in science, but coming up with it in the first place.
Solving an important problem won Hassabis a Nobel Prize last year. He and colleague John Jumper created an AI model that deciphered the structure of proteins.
Proteins are the basic building blocks of life. So everything in biology, everything in your body depends on proteins. Your neurons firing, your muscle fibers twitching, it's all mediated by proteins.
But 3D protein structures like this are so complex, less than 1% were known. Mapping each one used to take years. DeepMind's AI model did 200 million in 1 year. Now, Hassabis has AI blazing through solutions to drug development.
So on average, it takes 10 years and billions of dollars to design just one drug. We can maybe reduce that down from years to maybe months or maybe even weeks, which sounds incredible today, but that's also what people used to think about protein structures. It would revolutionize human health, and I think one day maybe we can cure all disease with the help of AI.
The end of disease?
I think that's within reach. Maybe within the next decade or so. I don't see why not.
Demis Hassabis told us AI could lead to what he calls radical abundance, the elimination of scarcity. But he also worries about risk.
There's two worries that I worry about. One is that bad actors human people, users of these systems repurpose these systems for harmful ends. Then the second thing is the AI systems themselves, as they become more autonomous and more powerful, can we make sure that we can keep control of the systems, that they're aligned with our values, they're doing what we want that benefits society, and they stay on guardrails.
Guardrails are safety limits built into the system. And I wonder if the race for AI dominance is a race to the bottom for safety.
So that's one of my big worries, actually, is that, of course, all of this energy and racing and resources is great for progress, but it might incentivize certain actors in that to cut corners. And one of the corners that can be shortcut would be safety and responsibility. So the question is how can we coordinate more, as leading players, but also nation states even. I think this is an international thing. AI is going to affect every country, everybody in the world. So I think it's really important that the world and the international community has a say in this.
Can you teach an AI agent morality?
I think you can. They learn by demonstration. They learn by teaching. And I think that's one of the things we have to do with these systems is to give them a value system and a guidance and some guardrails around that, much in the way that you would teach a child.
Google DeepMind is in a race with dozens of others striving for artificial general intelligence, so human that you can't tell the difference, which made us think about Demis Hassabis signing the Nobel Book of Laureates. When does a machine sign for the first time? And after that, will humans ever sign it again?
I think in the next steps is going to be these amazing tools that enhance our almost every endeavor we do as humans. And then beyond that, when AGI arrives, I think it's going to change pretty much everything about the way we do things. And it's almost, I think we need new great philosophers to come about, hopefully in the next 5-10 years, to understand the implications of this.
Over the last decade, a new breed of tech billionaires has positioned themselves not merely as entrepreneurs, but as visionary saviors who believe technology can transform the world. Tonight, we will introduce you to one of them. His name is Palmer Luckey, and he's the founder of Anduril, a California defense products company. Luckey says for too long, the U.S. military has relied on overpriced and outdated technology. He argues a Tesla has better AI than any U.S. aircraft, and a Roomba vacuum has better autonomy than most of the Pentagon's weapons systems. So Anduril is making a line of autonomous weapons that operate using artificial intelligence, no human required. Some international groups have called those types of weapons killer robots. But as Sharyn Alfonsi first reported earlier this year, Palmer Luckey says it is the future of warfare.
I've always said that we need to transition from being the world police to being the world gun store.
Do we want to be the world's gun store?
I think so. I think we have to.
Says the guy who sells weapons.
See, I agree it sounds self-fulfilling, but you have to remember, I also got into this industry because I believe that.
Palmer Luckey isn't your typical defense industry executive. His daily uniform, flip-flops and a Hawaiian shirt, is more suited for Margaritaville than the military. But the 32-year-old billionaire is the founder of Anduril, whose line of American-made autonomous weapons looks like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie, and whose slick marketing videos wouldn't be out of place in one. There's the Roadrunner, a twin turbo jet-powered drone interceptor that can take off, identify, and strike. If it doesn't find a target, it can land and try again. Anduril also makes headsets, which allow soldiers to see 360 degrees in combat. And there's this. It's an electromagnetic warfare system that can be programmed to jam enemy systems, knocking out drone swarms. It's not some futuristic fantasy. Anduril systems are already being used by the U.S. military and in the war in Ukraine.
We shouldn't be sending our people to stand in other countries, putting our men and women, our sons and daughters at risk for the sovereignty of other nations.
So you'd rather have an American-made product in their hands than our soldiers over there?
Absolutely, every time. And I think that that's one of the reasons that autonomy is so powerful. Right now, there's so many weapon systems that require manning. If I can have one guy commanding and controlling 100 aircraft, that's a lot easier than having to have a pilot in every single one, and it puts a lot fewer American lives at risk.
To be clear, autonomy does not mean remote controlled. Once an autonomous weapon is programmed and given a task, it can use artificial intelligence for surveillance or to identify, select, and engage targets. No operator needed.
It's a scary idea to some people.
It's a scary idea, but I mean, that's the world we live in. I'd say it's a lot scarier, for example, to imagine a weapon system that doesn't have any level of intelligence at all. There's no moral high ground in making a landmine that can't tell the difference between a school bus full of children and Russian armor. It's not a question between smart weapons and no weapons. It's a question between smart weapons and dumb weapons.
Luckey showed us how those so-called smart weapons can be synchronized on Anduril's AI platform. It's called Lattice. Lattice collects data from various sensors and sources, including satellites, drones, radar, and cameras, allowing, he says, the AI to analyze, move assets, and execute missions faster than a human.
If you were having to require the human operator to actually map every single action and say, hey, do this, if that, then this, it would take so long to manage it that you would be better off just remotely piloting it. If it's the AI on board all these weapons that makes it possible to make it so easy.
There are lots of people who go, oh, AI, I don't know, I don't trust it, it's going to go rogue.
I would say that it is something to be aware of, but in the grand scheme of things to be afraid of, there's things that I'm much more terrified of. And I'm a lot more worried about evil people with mediocre advances in technology than AI deciding that it's going to wipe us all out.
Luckey says all Anduril's weapons have a kill switch that allow a human operator to intervene if needed. But the Secretary General of the United Nations has called lethal autonomous weapons, quote, politically unacceptable and morally repugnant.
When people say to you, look, it's evil, how do you respond to that?
I usually don't bother because if I am going to argue with them, I usually poke it. I'm like, okay, so do you think that NATO should be armed with squirt guns or slingshots? How about sternly worded letters? Would you like that? Would you like it if NATO they just have a bunch of guys sitting at typewriters, 1,000 monkeys writing letters to Vladimir Putin, begging him to not invade Ukraine? Our entire society exists because of a credible backstop of violence threatened by the United States and our allies all over the world. And thank goodness for it.
It might sound flip, but part of Palmer Luckey's philosophy is that autonomous weapons ultimately promote peace by scaring adversaries away.
My position has been that the United States needs to arm our allies and partners around the world so that they can be prickly porcupines that nobody wants to step on. Nobody wants to bite them.
In your mind, is it enough just to have all these things as deterrents, or do they have to be deployed and used?
They have to believe that you can use them.
By the end of this year, Anduril says it will have secured more than $6 billion in government contracts worldwide.
When you first came into this space and you're a tech guy in a Hawaiian shirt and you're walking into the Pentagon, maybe in flip-flops, I don't know. Were you welcomed with open arms?
There were a very small number of people who welcomed me with open arms, and everyone else thought that I was nuts.
Nuts because there hasn't been a new company in the defense industry in a significant way since the end of the Cold War. For decades, 5 defense contractors called the primes have dominated the industry. Typically, the primes present an idea to the Pentagon. If the Pentagon buys it, the government pays for the company to develop it, even if it's late or goes over budget. Luckey started Anduril to flip that procurement structure on its head.
The idea behind Anduril was to build not a defense contractor, but a defense product company.
What's the difference?
Contractors, in general, are paid to do work, whether or not it succeeds. A product company has a very different mentality. You're putting in your own money, you're putting in your own time. My vision was to build a company that would show up not with a PowerPoint describing how taxpayers are going to pay all my bills, but with a working product where all the risk has been baked out It will work for enough things that you can save our country hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
It may not surprise you that Palmer Luckey's father was a car salesman. His mother took on the role of homeschooling him and his 3 sisters. Luckey says he was fascinated by electronics and spent a lot of time tinkering in his parents' garage in Long Beach, California. By age 19, his tinkering turned into Oculus, the virtual reality company. And at 21, Palmer Luckey fulfilled every young founder's dream when he sold Oculus to Facebook for $2 billion. The Wonder Kid graced the covers of magazines, but 2 years later, he was fired from Facebook.
Why did you get fired?
Well, everyone's got a different story, but it boils down to I gave $9,000 to a political group that was for Donald Trump and against Hillary Clinton. To be a Trump supporter in 2016, this was at the height of the election insanity and derangement in Silicon Valley. And so I think that a lot of people thought back then that you could just fire a Trump supporter.
Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has denied that Luckey was fired for his political views.
What do you think now when you see those tech leaders, Mark Zuckerberg, lined up behind President Trump now at his inauguration?
I am inclined to let every single one of them get away with it. Look.
What do you mean get away with it?
Coming around to a point of view that is more aligned with the American people broadly, I think is good for the country. I think it is not good for you to have techno-corpo elites that are radically out of step with where the American people are.
In 2017, Luckey says he left Silicon Valley with hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank and a chip on his shoulder.
I was fired at the height of my career. My gears were ground, and I really wanted to prove that I was somebody, that I was not a one-hit wonder, and that I still had it in me to do big things.
He says he thought about starting companies to combat obesity or fix the prison system, but ultimately decided to break into the defense industry.
Have you run into any people who don't take you seriously because you were never in the military?
I don't think so. I think I owe that to the James Bond franchise. Everyone in the military has seen James Bond movies, and they all like Q, right? I'm the wacky gadget man. I'm the guy who types on the computer and pushes up my glasses and then gives them a strange thing to help them accomplish their mission.
And this is his laboratory, Anduril's 640,000 square foot headquarters in Costa Mesa, California. It's a mix of high-tech carpentry and robotic engineering. A sign on the floor pokes fun at the boss's shoe choice. But Luckey wanted to show us something off campus. We hopped in his 1985 Humvee. The billionaire told us he also owns a decommissioned Black Hawk helicopter, a 48-crew submarine, and a Navy speedboat.
Yeah.
In Dana Point, we took a ride 15 minutes off the coast to see the largest weapon in Anduril's arsenal, this submarine. It's called the Dive XL. It's about the size of a school bus and works autonomously.
It's not remote controlled by this computer. It's doing it on the brain, on the submarine itself. So if I told it to go off and perform some mission that's months long, like go to this target, listen for this particular signature, and if you see this signature, run. If you see this one, hide. If you see this one, follow it. It can do that all on its own without being detected, without communicating with it.
Anduril says the Dive XL can travel 1,000 miles fully submerged. Australia has already invested $58 million in the subs to help defend its seas from China. But Anduril's most anticipated weapon was closely guarded until May. Hidden inside this hangar, Anduril's unmanned fighter jet called Fury. There is no cockpit or stick or rudder because there's no pilot.
The idea is that you're building a robotic fighter jet that is, flying with manned fighters and is doing what you ask it to do, recommending things that be done, taking risks that you don't want human pilots to take.
Fury represents a big turning point for the company. Anduril was viewed by some inside the defense industry as a tech bro startup until it beat out several of the prime defense contractors to make an unmanned fighter jet for the Air Force. Fury is scheduled to take its first test flight this summer. If selected by the Pentagon, it, like all Anduril products, will be produced in the U.S.
The war games say we're going to run out of munitions in 8 days in a fight with China. If we have to fight Iran and China and Russia all at the same time, we are screwed.
If we go to war, right?
Yep.
Your version of what Anduril's place is in a conflict.
Yep.
How do you view it?
I think what we're going to be doing is first connecting a lot of these systems that otherwise would not have been talking to one another. So we're going to be making large numbers of cruise missiles, large numbers of fighter jets, large numbers of surface and subsurface systems. I guess I would hope that Anduril is making most of the stuff that's being used on day 9, day 10, day 11, day 100. I think a lot of that is going to be coming out of our factories after everything else is run dry.
In 1497, an ambitious 22-year-old hiked up to the quarries above the Italian town of Carrara looking for a perfect block of marble. He searched for months until he found it. His name was Michelangelo, and the marble became his immortal, the Pietà. Since then, many other giants, think Bernini, Canova, have put their chisels to Carrara stone. Now, there's an upstart, and like his star predecessors, he goes by a single name, Robo. Robo is part of a fleet of robots shaking up the art world, carving with pinpoint precision and in record time. But as we first reported last fall, not everyone is happy. One artist told us Michelangelo would be rolling in his grave. The jagged ridges of the Apuan Alps stretch for 30 miles across northern Tuscany. Even in summer, their dazzling peaks seem covered in snow. But get up close. It's not snow, it's marble. Peel away the forests, wash away the soil, you'll find whole mountains of the most sought-after marble in the world.
It's remarkable. Yes, we are now approaching the Ravaccione Valley, the valley where you can find the stones that Michelangelo used in the past.
We were traveling with Giacomo Massari, the CEO and co-founder of Robotor, a company that makes robots that sculpt.
Some of this is in the statue of David.
Yes.
This was Michelangelo's old stomping grounds. We passed quarry after quarry. There are more than 600 above Carrara. The glare from the gleaming rock was intense when suddenly we hurtled into darkness.
Look at this.
A tunnel cut straight into the heart of a marble mountain. We drove until we could go no farther.
Our work starts from here. The first hard part is to get the stone.
We reached what quarrymen call the cathedral.
Yeah, let's try not to fall.
The track down was slimy with marble mud.
The cathedral.
This is mind-blowing.
From the floor, walls of stone towered above us. Giacomo Massari told us Carrara's miners had hollowed out the vast cavern over 200 years. We had come to see Robotor's next project, a monumental block of marble about the size of a railway car, 200,000 pounds of flawless Carrara stone.
You're going to move this block out of here?
We are going to move this big boy out of here.
How?
There are going to be a couple of cranes and a huge truck to lift it.
A feat not possible in Michelangelo's time, but then neither was this. Meet Robo, one of the brigade of robots taking over sculpture. We watched as Leonardo da Vinci's trademark hat was adjusted, not with a hammer and chisel, but a 13-foot zinc alloy arm and a spinning diamond-crusted finger. Water jets kept Leonardo cool. This was a week's work for Robo, with another 2 to go.
So if you were doing this the old-fashioned way, hammer and chisel, how long would this take?
10 times more, at least.
10 times longer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Massari told us his mechanical employees, 7 and counting, don't sleep, get sick, or take holidays. He took robots off the automotive line and gave them bigger brains.
And the robot will work all these ridges.
Robotor's chief technician, also a sculptor, turns the artist's model into a 3D file. That generates a complex set of instructions that tells the robot exactly where to carve, right down to the last half-inch.
How much of the work is done by the robot and the computer, and how much by the human artist?
We are talking a very high percentage that can be done by the machining.
Like how much?
Like 99%.
99%?
Yeah. And the very final 1%, that is the most important, is still done by very skilled artisans in our workshop.
Just 1%? But that 1%, Massari told us, can translate into months of human work. Still, we wondered, was using a robot a bit like cheating?
If you have a robot doing 99% of the work, where's the artistry?
In the idea, how you program the machine, it's a work of art because it's an artistic approach. You need to have a sculptural background to program the machine in the way that you want.
Massari says Michelangelo, like other A-listers, employed dozens of apprentices who worked anonymously behind the scenes. Now it's the robot's turn, but not every artist wants to admit they have a robot on the payroll. There was work we couldn't film commissioned by big-name artists who insist their identities remain secret.
Why is that?
I think they are afraid because most of the people, if you ask a direct question, do you like that this artwork is made by a robot, yes or no, 9 out of 10 will say no.
Do you think that people would think the robot's doing all the work?
Yes, but it doesn't make your idea weaker or stronger. If your idea is bad, you can make it with a robot or make it by hand. Still, the final artwork will be bad. But if your idea is good, if you make it with a robot or not, it will be still good.
But Tuscan artist Michael Manfroni told us only a human touch can coax the divine out of a stone. And that sounds like this. Manfroni told us Michelangelo would never lower himself to using a robot, and neither would he. And he says he despairs at seeing the master's work being copied by robots.
Secondo me è un sacrilegio.
It's sacrilege, he told us. Sculpting is passion. Robots are business.
Passione.
Manfroni first picked up a chisel at age 7, learning the trade from his father. Now those skills are on the brink of extinction.
You have said if you use a machine, you become a machine.
Yes, because your mind is limited by the technology, he told us. It's only a computer program transmitted to the robot. You lose the satisfaction of having created a piece of art by hand. Manfroni is not alone. The prestigious Sculptors Guild of Carrara is dead set against robots too. They warn that Italy's artistic heritage is at risk.
There is a conservative mindset that wants to hold on to some imagined ancient way of approaching art that's mystifying to me.
Barry X. Ball is a contemporary artist based in New York City. He uses eye-popping stone to make works that have been shown at major museums around the world. He's a regular shopper here in Carrara. These blocks go for about $300,000, and on a recent trip, he bought a robot too. Ball told us he's come under fire for using them.
I hear a kind of fear that's almost like they're going to take our way of making sculpture away from us. Not trying to do that, we're trying to add to it.
I know you've heard the criticism that this is cheating. What do you say to the people who think that?
Number one, they don't understand the process. They think we're pressing print and the robot is plopping out a sculpture. We're very involved in the middle of that as humans with that creative process. But here it looks like...
Ball told us the robot made impossible art possible. Take Michelangelo's Pietà Rondinini. He was still working on it when he died.
Zoom in on the front of the sculpture.
Using a scan of the unfinished work, Ball created something new.
If we can get this head in there.
Instead of the roughed-out face of Jesus, ball gave the Son of God the face of dying Michelangelo.
This is straight up and down. We need to tilt that back. Yep, exactly.
He broadened the pedestal and more.
I hope he's looking down on us, giving his approval.
Then the robot got to work, peeling away the stone until Ball's new pietà emerged. Ball left some of the milling marks visible. It's like you want people to know that the robot was
absolutely
a partner in this?
It also gives this incredibly beautiful effect, which to me, the first time I saw a robot milled surface, looked exactly like the fluting you see in Egyptian drapery.
Ball told us he employs 6 finishers for every robot. His pietà was shown at a museum in Milan. Carrara's miners pull out about 1 billion tons of marble a year from the quarries. Most is destined for kitchen countertops and bathrooms. Modern artists had begun to shun marble because it was too difficult to work and time-consuming. Robotor argues the robots are reviving Carrara's artistic fortunes by doing the heavy lifting.
To be honest, no one really likes the hard rough cutting. It's tough work, running a saw, whacking away big blocks. So everyone is really excited to be able to let part of that go.
Vermont-based artist Richard Erdman told us he added a robot to his team in Carrara about a year ago. After 2 back surgeries and 40 years in the business, he was ready for some mechanical help.
The other thing about the Robo, which is advantageous, is there are no mistakes. When you're hand cutting...
No mistakes?
No, when you're hand cutting with a diamond saw, it's a 5-inch blade, you're following your model with compasses, you could go too far if the cutter isn't skillful enough, and that's a mistake. The Robo is perfectly accurate.
Erdman's sculptures are held by more than 100 galleries and museums worldwide. In 1983, he made his breakout piece, Passage.
You could almost push it now with your hand, it's so close to falling.
A huge sculpture cut from a 700-ton block of Italian travertine. Working with a diamond saw, a jackhammer, and a polishing team, it took 2 years. Robo, Erdman says, would have helped. It sounds like the robot is your colleague.
It's not just a machine. When that arm is moving around, I'm really part of it. It's following your design. It's part of you. It's a machine. That's beside the point. It's friendly. We all love it. There's no way around it.
Were you skeptical of the robots in the beginning?
Yes, we were, but one has to embrace it. The business is changing so fast with a Robo that an artist that does not embrace the Robo in their work is really going to be the artist left behind.
Erdman says now his Robo does about half the work. Then he takes over, polishing the marble until it glows and finishing those hard-to-get-at places that the diamond fingers still can't reach, at least not yet. For now, the sounds that Michelangelo would have made still ring out. The marble will be here for generations, but we wondered, how long will the sound?